with AEW stars interested in moving to WWE and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for May 6th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Speaking of Busted Open Radio about his health, Jake the Snake Roberts revealed that he will be undergoing a third procedure on his hip. When you're getting to the age I am, which is too old, you're going to have problems because the parts are breaking down. If I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. To tell you the truth, I'm about to get my third hip surgery. There's no warranties on those damn things. That's BS. You have those little issues here and there. Unfortunately, my mom gave me a couple of diseases and there's no cure for them in my lungs. I have to do a little oxygen here and there, but that's okay. In between, man, I have such great days. Speaking to Sportskeeda about the growth of Austin Theory on the main roster, Drew McIntyre explained the differences he sees between his Chosen One storyline and Theory's current push. I think this has been approached a lot better than mine. I was Vince McMahon's Chosen One, but only interacted with him maybe 2 or 3 times on television. Mr. McMahon has a very strong presence in this particular story with Theory. He's not only there by name when Theory talks about him, he's also physically there a lot of the time as part of the story and gives Theory that rub. And again, he's a young guy, but he looks phenomenal and he's got a great attitude. He works incredibly hard. If he keeps on the path he's on right now, which being a random the way I have, I've got a good feeling about him. He's going to do good for us in the future. While AEW President Tony Khan has hinted at creating a 6-man tag team division for AEW, Dave Meltzer revealed some interesting information regarding this in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Trios title belts have been made, so now it's just a matter of when they pull the trigger. Tony Khan was asked about making Trios titles and gave the indication a few months ago that it was happening, but they didn't want to do the tournament until Kenny Omega was back. There are so many obvious teams with Young Bucks and Omega, Cole and Fish and O'Reilly, Danielson and Moxley and Yuta, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, FTR and Question Mark, Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, Death Triangle, House of Black, which is 8 right there, and you could do Starks and Hobbs and Hook, Jericho Appreciation Society, Kingston and Santana and Ortiz, Hardys and Question Mark, Lee and Strickland and Question Mark, Dark Order, Ethan Page and Sky and Question Mark. You could probably pad this to 16 fairly easily or do 12 with some first round buys. Also in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, after Moxley had a match against Tom Lawler for Defy Wrestling and teased Bryan Danielson appearing in the promotion, Meltzer noted that's not going to happen for the time being. Moxley said that Lawler was a friend of the Blackpool Combat Club and that he considers Defy a friend of AEW. Then he asked the crowd if they like tag team wrestling. He said if you scream loud enough the next he comes, he may bring Bryan Danielson with him. The noise was deafening for that. The basic situation is that Danielson has expressed interest in working for Defy. However, Defy had been told that AEW wants Danielson's first Seattle match to be when they debut in the market. However, there is no date for that. That's why I was surprised they didn't run Seattle in June because they rarely come to the West Coast. On the Universal Wrestling podcast, Malakai Black spoke about his feud with Cody Rhodes, revealing he is grateful that the American Nightmare put him over. Tony Khan said Cody Rhodes has an idea for that to mesh it in. It's gonna be you and Cody, and I just got butterflies, because I was like, man, this is Cody Rhodes. It's not like a small guy. He's a Rhodes, it's a big deal, and he did a great job of selling me and making me feel like a star, and he did a great job of putting me over, etching my first few months in AEW as being very fruitful and being productive and giving me a sizable rep, and I released that little video prior, The Devil Made Me Do It, which kind of wove with those black masks and stuff. Everything just kind of trickled into it. It was just fun, man. Everything trickled into it, and yeah, it was a great time. On that same podcast, Black would recall advice he received from The Undertaker in WWE, saying, "Taker used to come up to me and say, just make sure that whenever you wrestle people, that people cannot be normal with who you are. And even now, in this installment, people can't look at what I do and just go regular guy, because you're not a regular guy." He's like, characters like ours need to be sold by the individual. He always mentioned Shawn Michaels being so good at it because Shawn would mock him, but then all of a sudden Taker would go in his face and it'd be like, uh-oh. There would always been an uh-oh moment, and that would sell the character. With AEW set to have a new reality show fill the spot for Rhodes to the Top, NBCU Business Affairs Manager McMahon spoke on the Strictly Business podcast with Eric Bischoff about the company creating more content to reach a broader audience. I would say what I think WWE has done very well that AEW needs to be mindful of is WWE content is everywhere where the consumer is. If you watch broadcast television, they're on Fox. If you watch cable television, they're on the USA Network. If you stream because you want to see next day content, for now, they're on Hulu. If you want to watch the monthly pay-per-views, they're on Peacock. But I think what they've done on top of that is the outside of the ring content that is cultivated to the point where the brand remains present in people's minds who don't watch wrestling. It's valuable for driving the demographics that might not necessarily watch the in-ring content to the in-ring content. The whole reason Total Bellas, Total Divas, Miz and Mrs. have been on TV so long is because that drives a mainly female viewership to the main content that they didn't necessarily have. The Andre the Giant documentary that was on HBO was one of the most successful HBO sports documentaries that they've done. Now we've got two Vince McMahon projects, one which is sold to Netflix, the one which is still looking for another network, but these are all outside the ring ancillary products that do drive revenue and a following to the product, and I think that's something that AEW should be mindful of right now. With him surprisingly being let go by WWE in July, Bray Wyatt is yet to make his return to pro wrestling. Talking about his salary prior to his release, Meltzer pointed out in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that at the time he left the company, he was believed to be third or fourth highest paid performer on the roster with a contract in the $4 million per year range at the time he was cut and was a major merchandise draw. During the early stages of the pandemic, many of those in the sports and entertainment industries had meetings with then President Trump. Speaking about this on the Pivot podcast, UFC President Dana White revealed that Vince McMahon got angry with him for not backing him up on the call. At the time, President Trump got me and a bunch of the other guys in sports on a panel, and we would get on a call every week with the president and walk through how we would do this, and I don't even know if I should talk about this publicly, but I've never talked about this before. Vince McMahon starts texting me and basically berating me after the calls like, why didn't you talk? Why didn't you back up what I was saying? And we got to go through this and all this other stuff. And I was like, because I think everybody's full of it. That's why, except for you. You're definitely not full of it, Vince. You know, Vince is a killer. While fans were expecting to see Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar go at it again at WrestleMania Backlash, the Beast would be pulled from all promotional material for the event. Meltzer said in The Observer that it is notable WWE at first advertised Lesnar, even though he was never supposed to be on the show. The explanation was that if they didn't advertise Lesnar, it would give people the clue that Lesnar wasn't winning at Mania. Anyway, it's direct false advertising. For those hoping to see Brock soon, he is being advertised for the SummerSlam Premium Live event this year. With him landing on his head due to a belly-to-belly from Ridge Holland on SmackDown in April, Big E would be stretchered out of the arena and taken to the hospital. It was found out that he may not need surgery after fracturing vertebrae in his neck. Now he's taken to Twitter to give fans an update as he wrote, "My C1 apparently isn't healing optimally. I'll spend another 4 to 6 weeks in a brace in hopes that I can avoid a fusion, but don't you fret. I've got a tremendous support system, and what shall be, shall be." With Cody Rhodes leaving his position as an executive vice president of AEW to return to WWE, fans have started wondering who could be next to defect. For The Observer, Meltzer discussed this, saying previously there were talents that were interested in coming from AEW to WWE that were making main roster salaries that were told by friends in AEW to stay put until 2024, when the company would be able to budget far more for talent. Even if AEW gets $90 million per year, it should be very profitable going forward and able to bid for a lot of talent whose deals are up, and as important, retain its own top talent because WWE would bid for some of them. It also should be noted that a lot of top AEW talent is under 200 pounds, and those guys are not likely to do well in the WWE system. With her having been absent from WWE programming since July due to pregnancy, Candice LeRae was set to have her contract expire in the middle of this year. As her husband, Johnny Gargano, is no longer with WWE, she's apparently been moved to the alumni section of WWE.com according to Fightful. Speaking of releases, Ringside News would note in regards to this, we've asked about WWE's policy to release NXT talent if they're not picking it up in 90 days. That's exactly what they're doing, but it's not a new policy. We were told the edict given after Triple H had his heart issue and was taken off NXT. He had nothing to do with it. With it previously reported that we will be seeing more regular releases soon, it remains to be seen who is cut next. If you want to see more videos, check out Wrestling Zone, where we do biographies, lists, and more. So far, we've done videos on the Usos' younger brother, Solo Sikoa, Veer, and more. If you want to check these out and others, click the link in the description. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.